Good morning. Pastor Ron Jetter, Emmanuel Lutheran Church, Grandview, Washington. Today, Saturday, the 4th of April. As you may know, if you live here in the state of Washington, the original quarantine issued by our Governor Jay Inslee has now passed. Of course, just yesterday the governor said, no, it's going to be until the 4th of May. So we have another 30 days. And we know that that could be extended to another 30 days beyond that. So, where are you getting out to? As you can tell, I got out to the barber. I was pretty shaggy. And actually, I should say I went up to the barber because right now I'm down in my basement studio, and the barber shop was up there in the hallway between our living room, dining room, and the entryway. And we happened to have some clippers, and Sue was good enough to cut my hair for me. So it's as good as it needs to be, and I'm very grateful that I have someone who's willing to do it. So where have you been out to lately without actually going anywhere? Well, Jesus has been traveling, and tomorrow, being Palm Sunday, is the day he arrives in Jerusalem. It begins the last week of his life before the crucifixion, so it begins what we call Holy Week in the Christian Church. But before that, he spent a very busy time in the weeks just prior to that. We've heard him performing various miracles, giving a blind man sight, healing people, raising his friend Lazarus, who had been in the tomb for 4 days already after his death. One of the other stories, though, as he's traveling along through these small towns, he runs into a crowd that wants to hear from him one last teaching, and there is a short Jewish man in that town who has gone to work for the Romans collecting taxes from his own people, from his fellow and sister Jews, and his name is Zacchaeus. And Zacchaeus wants to see Jesus, but he can't push through the crowds, and nobody likes Zacchaeus. So even if he tried, it's not as though people are going to say, oh, Zacchaeus, you're small, you need to be up front. It's no, Zacchaeus, you're small, here, take my elbow. And so he climbed a tree. And Jesus looks at the crowd, and then from Matthew 19, we hear these words. Jesus entered Jericho, was passing through. A man was there by the name of Zacchaeus. He was a chief tax collector and was wealthy. He wanted to see who Jesus was, but because he was short, he could not see over the crowd. So he ran ahead and climbed up a sycamore fig tree to see him, since Jesus was coming that way. When Jesus reached the spot, he looked up and said, Zacchaeus, come down immediately. I must stay at your house today. So he came down at once and welcomed him gladly. All the people saw this and began to mutter, he's gone to be the guest of a sinner. But Zacchaeus stood up and said to the Lord, look, Lord, here and now I give half my possessions to the poor. If I've cheated anybody out of anything, I'll pay back 4 times the amount. Jesus said to him, today salvation has come to this house, because this man too is a son of Abraham, for the Son of Man came to seek and to save what was lost. This text exists for the purpose of saying to the Jewish people, you're included in what God is doing. You've always been God's chosen people, but even among you there are those who are rejected. And I'm here for them. And it may be that the ones who are most rejected by any group of people are the ones who are most in need of being told, you count. Why did Zacchaeus become a tax collector? Was it because he could become rich, or was it because he was so diminished, even within his own society, that he thought, I'm already hated, I'm already overlooked, I may as well take the next step and work for the enemy and collect taxes? And what does he do when he meets Jesus? He realizes that in doing this, he has given away his soul, and he wants his soul back. And he places his very soul in the hands of Jesus. Just by meeting him, just by hearing Jesus say, by the way, you're going to invite me to stay at your house tonight, and we're having dinner. Wow. You do that with good friends. You do that with family. We can call up my brother or my sister or any number of friends and say, hey, we're coming to stay with you. And they would be thrilled. But for for acquaintances you don't really know to say, hey, would you invite me to dinner, please? It's an awkward situation. And to say, I'm going to stay at your house. Oh, by the way, I've got this crowd of guys with me and some others too. And can we just take over your yard as well? That's unheard of. Who would have enough food and enough beds to be able to do that? And yet Zacchaeus is absolutely honored and thrilled to be able to now call Jesus, you hear the words? His Lord, my Lord. And he welcomes Jesus, and that then separates Jesus from that crowd, from his own people. That then creates one of these moments that is going to add to the evidence that Jesus is not a friend of the people, that he's the enemy, and that he has sided now with Rome. Meanwhile, we'll hear next week how the Jews who want to reject Jesus are still going to find their own uses to make sure that Rome helps them get rid of Jesus. It's ironic. But today, Jesus is passing through the town of Jericho outside of Jerusalem on his way to the triumphal entry, which we will hear about tomorrow morning. If you were going to invite a friend over, who would it be? Who do you miss not being face to face with right now? We have friends who are a mile down the street, and there was times past when we'd get up early in the morning, walk to their house, have coffee, and then they'd walk back to our house, and then they'd walk back home. The next day we would reverse that. And we got out of the habit of it, and we were in much better physical shape back then and need to do that again. But we have continued to have dinner, see each other every week or two. We have other friends that we call up regularly. We have friends on the west side that we see several times a year. I try to see my brother 3 or 4 times a year. Sue's brother we see probably, in the last year, over a half a dozen times down in the Portland area. We enjoy getting together with people. I enjoy seeing my kids, my grandkids. So that's a difficult time, and yet we who are retired or semi-retired are probably the ones who can easily or more easily financially weather this. Hopefully we don't need all of our funds right now. We may be even spending less because we're not traveling. My travel trailer needs fixing before I can take it out, and I don't know when that's going to happen. It could be months. It could be a year when we just don't go lots of places in our travel trailers, in our motorhomes, and our campers, and our boats, and our jet skis. We just don't do as much of that recreational stuff that we've gotten used to. As my financial guy at Thrivent says, I'm in the go-go phase of early retirement. And then there's the slow go, and then there's the no-go. Well, I got to the no-go phase a lot quicker than I thought I would, and I hope I'll return to the go-go phase. But really, the idea of sitting alone at home and still finding ways like this to connect with you, that's not a hardship on me by any means. I have no right to complain at all, none at all. If I want to travel, I can go into my Bible and I can travel with Jesus for those 3 years of his public ministry. I can read any number of novels. The television still works. And I do love travel, those great travel epics. Ron Tolkien, J.R.R. Tolkien's Hobbit and his trilogy, The Lord of the Rings, those are all travel stories. It's moving physically and through time. C.S. Lewis, Tolkien's one of his best friends, his Chronicles of Narnia, these are traveling, and sometimes they're traveling to other places. So we have ways we can travel. Right now, my voice and my face are traveling to you through technology. We have ways to connect up. I'm missing the people that I play with, that I jam with on Wednesday night, the Flat Possum Pickers from Prosser and Grandview and West Richland and Sunnyside. I'm trying to think maybe we can do this so we can have a rehearsal together using the same technology. But I want to do some traveling. Until then, though, I'm going to stay put and know that like Zacchaeus, Jesus is my Lord, and that I'm welcome in his house, and he's present in my house. May the Lord Jesus Christ give you peace and bless your house during this continued at least 30 days of quarantine during COVID-19.